So you guys, it's around noon.
I knew you were gonna have a burn. Oh yeah, bro.
Yeah, duh.
And very exhausted at this point in time, but I wanted to show you guys how many people are actually here. Take a look at that, even in the back. This is amazing.
Lane County, Oregon, are you feeling the burn? I'm Matt Keating in celebration of our honored guest, the next President of these United States. The following is a brief Bernie Sanders-inspired Shakespearean play on our movement today. To burn or not to burn, there is no question. There is no more in the mind to suffer the huff and bluster of the far right wing, or to take on the status quo and organize against it. To vote by mail for Bernie, and by a vote to say we end the big banks and take on the 1%. To vote, to burn, perchance to dream. There's the rub, for in this dream of hope, what reforms come when we have stood as one and risked our all must give us pause. The game is rigged. That makes progress an uphill climb. For we who feel the burn and volunteer our time, healthcare for all, save Social Security, outface climate change, Wall Street reform, compassionate officials, and the passion of a people with a cause. Would you sit inside while there is revolution? What would Bernie do?
Right.
But knock doors, donate time, phone to see the undiscovered country from whose bourne no student lives in debt. No, rather we fight for equal rights than buckle to the power of the 1%. Thus, conscience does make voters and volunteers of us all, and enterprises of great pith and movement with this regard, Senator Bernie Sanders will prevail and take the name of action this weekend, Oregon at 28th and Friendly in Eugene, and at Bernie field offices from Bend to Medford, Portland, and Corvallis, from the coast to the Willamette Valley to the high desert, we will take direct action and vote early and volunteer often. For the sake of our next generation of students, for the sake of our nation's future, for the sake of our planet's future, we need you. Bernie needs you. Today, through May 17th, we need your time, we need your energy, we need you to get out the vote and work to win Oregon by a huge margin! Are you ready, Oregon? Are you ready to show the world that this is Bernie country? Are you ready, Oregon, to welcome the next president of these United States? Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Bernie
there. Thank you all for coming out. Now, I gotta say, I have received many introductions throughout this campaign. This is the first Shakespearean introduction. And let me thank Matt Keating for his poetry. I don't know that my mere prose can keep up with his poetry, but I will try. Let me also say a word of thanks to Senator Jeff Merkley. My understanding is Jeff is in Washington today, but I do want to thank him for being the only member of the United States Senate to have the guts to stand up to the establishment. When we began this campaign, it's almost a year ago, we had no money, we had no name recognition outside of Vermont, and we were considered a fringe candidacy by the punditry and the media and all of the experts. Not only were we taking on Wall Street, taking on corporate America, taking on wealthy campaign contributors and super PACs, taking on the corporate media, we were also in Secretary Clinton's campaign taking on the entire Democratic establishment and the most powerful political organization in this country. Well, a lot has happened in a year. When we began this campaign, we were over 60 points behind Secretary Clinton in national polls. In the last few weeks, some of the polls had us ahead or a few points down. Over the last many months, we have won 17 primaries and caucuses throughout this country. And some 1,350 delegates to the Democratic National Convention. And maybe most importantly, and I hope that delegates going to the Democratic Convention pay heed to this, in every national poll done in the last month, we are defeating Donald Trump by much greater margins than Hillary Clinton. USA Today poll, Sanders 15 points up, GWU 10 points, Fox 14 points, CBS 17 points, McClatchy 20. In other words, we all agree, this is one thing that Secretary Clinton and I do agree on. We must not have a Republican in the White House. But I think the evidence is overwhelming that you are looking at the strongest Democratic candidate. And the reason for that is that our campaign is able to reach out beyond the Democratic base and win the support of millions of independents. And the other reason, which I think is obvious, and you are seeing it here today, this is the campaign that is generating excitement, enthusiasm, and a large voter turnout. The truth is, Republicans win elections when the people are demoralized and give up and voter turnout is low. Progressives and Democrats win elections when people are prepared to stand up, fight back, and that's what this campaign is about. Now, my view, if you take a hard look at the Republican agenda, it is hard to imagine anybody voting for that agenda. Now, unfortunately, the media does not often take a look at that agenda, so I will do that today. Now, different Republicans may have nuanced differences, but bottom line is virtually all of them, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, their response is to provide hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the top 0.2% by repealing the estate tax. In a country in which 47 million people are living in poverty, billionaires like Donald Trump do not need tax breaks. But that's not all. Republicans want to give huge tax breaks to people who don't need it, but at the same time, most of them want to make devastating cuts to the programs that are keeping millions of people alive. Today, all over this country, in Oregon, in Vermont, all over this country, we've got disabled veterans and seniors trying to make it on $10,000 or $11,000 a year Social Security. Republicans want to cut Social Security. Republicans want to cut Medicare. They want to cut Medicaid. They want to cut federal aid to education. They want to cut food stamps for hungry children. They want to throw millions of people off of the Affordable Care Act, and they have no substitute for those millions of people who will lose their health insurance. So let's be clear. When you're throwing millions of people off of health insurance, some of those people will certainly die, and many others will become much sicker and suffer in a way that they did not have to. But that's what they want to do. Eliminate the Affordable Care Act. Millions of people lose their health insurance. Not a whit of concern for those people. At a time when we are seeing an increasingly corrupt campaign finance system, what Republicans want to do is not overturn Citizens United. You know what they want to do? They want to end all campaign finance regulations so that billionaires can directly fund their candidates. You know, and I think we are reaching the day when you're going to have members of Congress with patches on their jackets, sponsored by the Koch brothers, sponsored by ExxonMobil, sponsored by the Pfizer drug company, because that is where the Republican Party is going. Now, right now, as a member of the Senate Committee on the Environment, I can tell you what all of you already know, and that is climate change is causing devastating problems in our country and the world. But you have a Republican Party that is rejecting science. Not one of the many Republicans who ran for president even acknowledged the reality of climate change, let alone a desire to transform our energy system. All over this country, you're seeing Republicans talking about family values. What their family values mean is that no woman here in Oregon, in America, should have the right to control her own body. And what Republican family values also mean is that our gay brothers and sisters should not have the right to get married. We disagree. This is a fringe agenda. And the problem we're having now is not, in my view, that the Republicans are winning elections. The problem is that the Democrats are losing elections.
But then you have to go.
In November of 2014, the midterm elections, 63% of the American people did not vote. 80% of young people and low-income people did not vote. And I think the reason for that is the Democratic Party up to now has not been clear about which side they are on the major issues facing this country. And here is the truth. You can't be for Wall Street and for the working people of this country. You cannot be for the drug companies and for the needs of senior citizens and veterans. You cannot be on the side of those workers who have lost their jobs because of disastrous trade agreements and support those corporations who have thrown millions of our workers out on the street. And the Democratic Party has to reach a fundamental conclusion. Are we on the side of working people or big money interests? Do we stand with the elderly, the children, the sick and the poor, or do we stand with Wall Street speculators and the drug companies and the insurance companies? Now, our job
doesn't he?
is not just to revitalize the Democratic Party, not only to open the doors to young people and working people. Our job is to revitalize American democracy. Today in America, not only do we have a corrupt campaign finance system where billionaires are buying elections, we also have a political system which in many respects makes it hard for people to participate. I want to see this country have one of the highest voter turnout rates in the world, not one of the lowest. And that is why, in my view, the Democratic Party has got to be very clear. We need automatic voter registration. All over this country, we got Republican governors trying to make it harder for people to vote. Our job is make it easier, bring more people into the system. And that means if you are 18 years of age in this country, you are registered to vote. End of discussion. In those states where it's applicable, we need same-day registration. We need open primaries. And I'll tell you what else the Democratic Party needs. Turns out, sadly, that the poorest states in this country, many in the South, where people are suffering without health insurance, without jobs, without access to a decent education for their kids. In many of those states, they are controlled by right-wing Republicans. And the truth is that the Democratic Party has turned its back on many of those states. We need a 50-state strategy. We need to plant the flag of progressive politics in every state in this country. It's great that the Democrats do well in New England and the East Coast, do well here in the West Coast, do well in some states in the Midwest. That's fine. But you can't turn your back on working people and low-income people and children and the poor in 25 states in this country. We've got to fight for every one of those states. Now, the reason that our campaign is doing as well as it is because we are doing something quite unusual in American politics. We are telling the truth. And the truth is not always pleasant. It's not always something you want to hear in your personal lives or in the political life of the country. But unless we deal with the hard realities facing this country and face up to them, we're going to go nowhere in a hurry. So here's the truth. The truth is, as I mentioned a moment ago, we've got a corrupt campaign finance system undermining American democracy. And together, we're not only going to overturn this disastrous Citizens United, we're going to move toward public funding of elections. Somebody wants to run for office, I don't care if they're progressive, conservative, moderate. You should not have to beg millionaires for campaign contributions. But it's not only a corrupt campaign finance system, it is a rigged economy. Here's another truth. You don't see it on TV too often, but it is a truth nonetheless. And that is, we have more income and wealth inequality in this country than at any time since 1928, and it is worse here than in almost any major country on earth. In my view, America is not supposed to be about the top 0.1% owning almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. America is not supposed to be about 20 of the wealthiest people owning more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans, half of our population. Now, you want to hear about a rigged economy. What a rigged economy is about is one family, the Walton family who owns Walmart. Not only does this family own more wealth than the bottom 40% of our people, this family pays their employees wages that are so low that many of those workers are forced to go on food stamps or Medicaid. A rigged economy is when the middle class of this country pays higher taxes to subsidize the workers of the wealthiest family in this country. And I say to the Walton family, the wealthiest family in this country and the major beneficiary of welfare, Waltons, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. This campaign is about thinking big, not small. It's about thinking outside of the box, outside of the status quo. It is about asking why it is that millions of our people today are working 2 or 3 jobs just to cobble together the income and the health care that they need. It is about asking why mom is working, dad is working, and the kids are working, and yet together they're bringing in less disposable income today than a family did with a one breadwinner 40 years ago. is asking, how does it happen that despite an explosion of technology and worker productivity, 58% of all new income is going to the top 1%. This campaign is asking, how does it happen that despite a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires, we have 47 million people in this country living in poverty? What this campaign is about, and we say it loudly and proudly, we are going to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. What does that mean? It means that when every psychologist in the world who studies the issue tells us that the most important years of human development are 0 through 4, we are going to have a high-quality child care pre-K system for our youngest Americans. It is about understanding that millions of working people cannot make it on 9, 10, 11 bucks an hour. We need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. It is about understanding that women are sick and tired of making 79 cents on the dollar to their time. And that I know every man here will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity. It is about understanding that in Oregon, over 180,000 children are living in poverty. That nearly 20,000 public school students under the age of 18 are homeless in Oregon. And that a quarter of the children in this great state live in households without adequate access to food. What this campaign is about is changing our national priorities. No, we're not going to give more tax breaks to multinational corporations and billionaires. We're going to demand that they start paying their fair share of taxes. What this campaign is about is understanding that our disastrous trade policies over the last 30, 40 years have cost us millions of decent paying jobs. NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China. Those have led to the shutdowns of tens of thousands of factories in America, where workers here are thrown out in the street as companies move to low-wage places all over the world. And one of the many differences of opinion that Secretary Clinton and I have opposed every one of these disastrous trade agreements. She has supported almost every one of these agreements. If corporations want us to purchase the products that they make, the time is long overdue for them to start manufacturing those products here in Oregon, in Vermont, and all over this country. I was in Flint, Michigan a couple of months ago, and what I saw and heard in Flint, Michigan was almost impossible to believe that it was occurring in the United States of America in the year 2016, and that is, children were suffering cognitive brain damage because they were drinking water with excessive levels of lead in it. But it is not just Flint, Michigan. All over this country, there are communities struggling with clean water. There are communities struggling with antiquated wastewater plants. Our roads, our bridges, our airports, our rail system in many parts of this country are deteriorating. We have got to understand that real unemployment in this country is not 5%. It is double that, close to 10%. We need a massive federal jobs program which puts American workers back to work. And the way we do that most quickly is by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. Think outside of the box. Ask yourselves why we have more people in America in jail than any other country on earth. Think about why so many people's lives are rotting away in jail cells all over America. And one of the reasons for that is that we have youth unemployment rates of 40, 50, 60% in communities throughout this country. Now, I have a very simple idea, and that is that maybe, just maybe, we should be investing in our young people in jobs and education, not in jails or incarceration. Brothers and sisters, we have a broken criminal justice system, and together we are going to reform that broken system. I was a mayor in Burlington, Vermont for 8 years. Got to know a lot of the police officers, worked with police officers all over this country.